This video may contain details of graphic content. This channel is for mature audiences only. Some viewers might find this disturbing. Bruce Jeffrey Pardo was born in 1963 and grew up in San Fernando Valley, Los Angeles, California. He graduated from John H. Polytechnic High School. He went on to study computer science at California State Northridge. After graduating, he secured a job as a software engineer for a jet propulsion laboratory. He would spend his time hacking into computer systems to access private personnel information such as compensation, tax information, etc. He also would not come to work on time, or sometimes he didn't come at all. Bruce fell in love with one of his colleagues named Delia, and eventually they got engaged. During this time, Bruce was still living with his mom and he wasn't in the best financial situation. So Delia agreed to pay for the wedding as well as her honeymoon and Tahiti. All arrangements for the wedding were set in stone, and the anticipation of the wedding had both Delia and Bruce's mother filled with excitement. On June 17th, 1989, the day arrived. Delia, who was filled with nervousness, waited at the church, only to be met with disappointment as Bruce failed to show up. Later, she discovered that he had withdrawn $3,000 from their joint bank account and was on a solo trip to Palm Springs, Florida. Delia called off their engagement. In 2001, Bruce was living with his girlfriend, Eleanor, and their 13-month-old son, Matthew, in Woodland Hills, California. One day, while Eleanor was out and Bruce stayed home with her son, he turned on the television, forgetting to pay careful attention to his son. 13-month-old Matthew fell into the backyard pool. When Eleanor came home, she found Bruce holding their son and crying hysterically. Matthew was quickly rushed to the hospital, and after a week of medical care, they were informed that Matthew would never fully recover. He sustained brain damage and was immobilized. True to Bruce's pattern of responses in challenging situations, he chose to leave once again, never seeing his son again. In 2004, a colleague of Bruce introduced him to his sister-in-law, Sylvia. Sylvia was a 40-year-old mother of 3. Sylvia and Bruce immediately connected, and on January 29, 2006, the couple tied the knot. Bruce purchased a $452,000 three-bedroom home in Montrose. The family attended church, with Bruce taking on the role of a volunteer usher. However, looks can be deceiving. A financial strain took a toll on their relationship, which prompted Bruce's mother, Nancy, to intervene. Nancy revealed to Sylvia Bruce's past struggles. She felt compelled to share insight into his previous relationship and him having a son. And to make matters worse, Bruce was still claiming Matthew on his taxes, even though he hasn't seen him in almost 6 years. Since the almost drowning incident in April 2008, Sylvia began divorce proceedings, which led Bruce into a downward spiral of depression. By June, he had purchased his first Pow Pow. During the divorce court session, he was ordered to pay $1,700 in monthly spousal support. However, his initial check bounced, and he stopped payment on the 2nd, making no further attempts to fulfill his end. Adding fuel to the fire, he was terminated from his job on July 31st for billing fraudulent hours. His application for unemployment benefits was denied due to his termination status. This prompted him to purchase another Pow Pow on August 8th. The following month, he purchased a third Pow Pow on September 8th. Bruce contacted Jerry, Pardo was one of his neighbors that owned a costume store called Jerry's Costumes. Bruce requested a Santa suit with extra room for comfort, citing that his 6'4" and 270-pound frame as too large for a standard suit. Bruce explained that it was for a children's party and paid a $200 deposit up front. He promised to pick up and pay the remaining balance in November. On October 11th, Bruce purchased a fourth Pow Pow. Shortly thereafter, he received a call from an old high school friend named Steve Irwin. And no, it was not the Australian zookeeper Steve Irwin. Steve invited him to Iowa to celebrate his 45th birthday. Bruce accepted the invitation, and while at Steve's house, he confided in him. Bruce felt embarrassed that his personal life was outed in court, exposing his finances and the details of his termination from his job. Adding to his distress, he was upset that his relationship with his mother went left. And during the divorce proceedings, she sided with Sylvia's family, failing to offer support to her own son. Upon his return in November, Bruce paid the remaining balance for the Santa suit at Jerry's Costumes. On top of that, he left Jerry a $20 tip. On November 13th, he purchased a fifth Pow Pow. Additionally, he obtained a DeWalt compressor, a 50-foot hose, and a tank of high-octane fuel. Just a week before Christmas, on December 18th, 2008, Bruce's divorce from Sylvia was finalized. He agreed to let her keep her diamond engagement ring and committed to paying her $10,000. The next day, Bruce visited Montrose Travel Agency, where he booked a round trip to get to Iowa to spend Christmas with his friend Steve. The flight, costing $650, was scheduled to depart at 12:20 a.m. on Christmas Day, with a return flight 2 weeks later. He rented a Dodge Caliber from Budget Car Rental and a silver RAV4 from Rent-A-Wreck. He loaded the RAV4 with maps of the southwestern United States, water, food, clothing, a tank of gas, a laptop, and a desktop computer. On the early evening of Christmas Eve, Bruce stopped to converse with a neighbor. He mentioned he was about to go to a Christmas party. He promised to serve as an usher for midnight mass at his church, but he didn't show up. Instead, around 11:30 p.m., he put on his Santa suit. He arrived at the residence of his former in-laws, where he knew his ex-wife Sylvia would be. Sylvia's 8-year-old niece approached him thinking he was Santa Claus. He instantly pow-powed her in the face. He proceeded to shoot at the fleeing partygoers. He stopped shooting. He unwrapped a gift he brought, which was a homemade flamethrower. Bruce began spraying racing fuel around the house with the intention of igniting it using a flare. The flames from 2 separate fireplaces triggered an unexpected explosion. Bruce quickly left the house, leaving behind a pair of fake glasses and a Santa hat in the yard. He then jumped into the Dodge Caliber, driving 30 miles to Salmar and parking approximately a block away from his brother's residence. He carefully removed his shredded Santa suit off his body as the fabric melted to his skin due to the explosion, resulting in severe third-degree burns. He repurposed the Santa suit to create a booby trap. Any attempt to move it would trigger a trip wire, setting off a flash fire, exploding 200 rounds of ammunition. Bruce's brother arrived home at approximately 3:10 a.m. to discover him sprawled out with 2 pow-pows. Bruce had taken himself out. Back at the house, the flames soared to a height of 40 to 50 feet, requiring 80 firefighters an hour and a half to extinguish the fire. 9 people lost their lives and 3 others were wounded. The intensity of the fire required the victims to be identified only through dental and medical records. These are the victims' names and how they died. Sylvia Pardo, Bruce's ex-wife, died from a gunshot wound. Alicia Ortega, Sylvia's mother, died from a gunshot wound to the abdomen. Joseph Ortega, Sylvia's father, died from multiple gunshot wounds. Charles Ortega, Sylvia's brother, died from a combination of smoke inhalation. And gunshot wounds. Sherry Ortega, Charles's wife, died from a combination of smoke inhalation and gunshot wounds. James Ortega, Sylvia's brother, died from a combination of smoke inhalation and gunshot wounds. Teresa Ortega, James's wife, died from a combination of smoke inhalation and gunshot wounds. Alicia Ortega Orts, Sylvia's sister, died from a combination of smoke inhalation and gunshot wounds. Michael Ortiz, Alicia's son, died in the fire. Sylvia's 8-year-old niece, the first victim, suffered severe injuries but survived the incident. A 16-year-old girl was shot and wounded in the back, and a 20-year-old woman suffered a broken ankle from jumping from a second-story window to escape the fire.